Welcome back. Have you ever wondered if the dream jobs we chase today, from doctors and artists to banking tycoons, had a dark past? It is a predictable irony of history. The journey of certain professions is nothing short of a spectacular U-turn. There are jobs that, just a few centuries ago, would have seen you shunned by society, stripped of your dignity, and placed at the very bottom of the social ladder. But today, they are symbols of success, wealth, and power. Today. 1. Actors. From infamous to Hollywood icons. Looking at the glitz of Hollywood or the Oscars, few would guess that in ancient Rome, actors were classified as infamia. This was a legal status for those who had lost their moral standing and civil rights. Why? Because the ancients believed that pretending to be someone else, crying and laughing on cue, was inherently deceptive and untrustworthy. They were viewed as slaves to emotion, and ranked alongside thieves or outcasts. In the Middle Ages, the church was so extreme that they often refused to give actors a Christian burial. An actor, no matter how talented, was forbidden from marrying a free citizen, and upon death, they were often tossed into unmarked graves. Today, we worship them as idols, but once, they were the most isolated souls in society.
I am so honored.
2. Surgeons. The bloody barbers. If you now need a decade of medical school to pick up a scalpel. Back then, the person performing surgery was likely your local barber. Throughout the Middle Ages, medicine was split into two extremes. Real doctors were called physicians. They wore long robes, sat at desks, and studied theory because they considered touching blood to be beneath them. Consequently, manual tasks like amputations, bloodletting, or treating wounds were handed off to barber surgeons. The red and white poles outside barbershops today are a relic of that era. Red for blood, white for bandages. They had no anesthesia and no concept of sterilization. A surgery back then was a horrific ordeal of pain, performed by someone with no social status other than owning sharp tools. 3. Dentists. Screams in the marketplace. Today's dentists work in sterile, high-tech clinics, but in the past, they were essentially quacks or blacksmiths at local fairs. Imagine this. No x-rays, no painkillers. When you had a toothache, the dentist would drag you to the center of the square, use a pair of rusty iron pliers, and use brute force to yank the tooth out, to drown out the patient's bone-chilling screams. They would often hire a band of musicians to blow trumpets and beat drums loudly nearby. Crowds would gather to watch, treating it like a form of dark entertainment. Dentistry was seen as a crude, violent trade. It took centuries for dentistry to be recognized as a true science rather than a gruesome street performance.
4. Musicians. Servants in uniform. We revere Mozart, Haydn, or Beethoven as divine geniuses, but the bitter reality is that in the 18th century, they were viewed merely as high-ranking servants for aristocratic families. Mozart himself had to wear a servant's uniform, eat in the basement with gardeners and cooks, and wait at the door for the master's command to perform. His job was to provide background noise while the nobles chewed their dinner. In East Asia, the situation was even harsher. Performers were often classified as low-born, outcasts. They were forbidden from taking government exams or holding any office. From being a dinner-time entertainer, they have now become cultural billionaires who shape the global zeitgeist. Nowadays, a secretary or executive assistant is a gatekeeper of secrets and power. But in the Roman Empire, secretaries were literate slaves. They were often literally chained to their desks to prevent them from fleeing while they spent all day transcribing documents and letters. The work was considered tedious, manual, and unfit for a free man. Because they were slaves, if they made a critical typo or ruined a manuscript, the punishment wasn't a pay cut, it was lashes from a whip or even being branded with a hot iron. They were the world's first human printing presses, living silent lives in the shadows of dusty offices. A far cry from the professional prestige the role carries in the 21st century. If you work in banking today, you are a symbol of achievement. But in the Middle Ages, lending money with interest usury was considered a sin against God. The church argued that time belongs to God, and charging for the passage of time by making money, money was seen as theft from the Creator. Bankers were despised, banned from religious ceremonies, and depicted in literature as souls destined for the seventh circle of hell. They lived in constant fear of having their property seized or being exiled. The transformation from a cursed sinner to a pillar of the global economy is perhaps the most incredible shift in human logic and social values. Before there were celebrity chefs like Gordon Ramsay or Michelin-starred masters, the kitchen was a nightmare. It was a job for slaves, or the poorest of the poor, trapped in hot, smoky, and dark royal basements. Chefs had no fame. They were invisible laborers. The most terrifying part was the life or death responsibility. If a king suffered from indigestion or a stomachache after a meal, the chef was the first person sent to the executioner's block on suspicion of poisoning. They worked in a state of exhaustion and fear, vastly different from the powerful, elegant, culinary artists in crisp white jackets we see on TV today. Finally, we look at professional athletes. Ronaldo or Messi earn hundreds of millions. But look back at the Roman gladiators' history's first professional athletes. They might have been superstars cheered by tens of thousands in the Colosseum, but legally, they were mere property. They had no freedom, no right to own assets, and their lives were nothing more than a commodity. Even in victory, their fate rested on the emperor's thumb. Their fame was a fleeting, hollow aura granted to social outcasts. Today, sports represent national pride and individual excellence, but its origins were soaked in blood and systematic injustice. 8 professions, 8 stories, but one common message. A person's worth isn't defined by their job title, but by how society chooses to value labor and dignity. This staggering shift shows that we live in a lucky era, where freedom and merit are finally taking center stage. If you are pursuing one of these careers today, be proud you are inheriting a history of incredible resilience. Which career pivot shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us bring you more high-quality history deep dives. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.